All right, y'all. Let's talk a little bit about kind of the answers to AI. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but I actually really do have some answers. So hang in there with me for a few minutes. Let me get my PowerPoint so you can both see and hear. So let's just talk for a minute about detection. I hope that you implement methods where detection won't be an issue, but I know it's important. Let's talk about it for a minute. How do you detect artificial intelligence? Meaning, like, how do you know if a student has used it? Well, mostly you can't. Occasionally, you absolutely can. Like if they have just copied and pasted something that's so obvious. Sometimes there's even places where the AI has like your name and they didn't take out where it said your name and put their own name in. There are times where you absolutely can. And the more you use AI, the more you'll see that it has a common style that it uses, um, a lot of bullet points, certain types of words and so forth. But the detectors aren't reliable. There are detectors, free detectors. You can just go online and find them. They help a little, but frequently they say things are AI generated when they're not. And frequently they don't say that they're AI generated when they are. But they're not a bad first look if you suspect a student has been using AI. Um, But if you need to go a little deeper, you can use what's called a stylometry prompt. This is a method that I developed where I was thinking about how stylometrists use like mathematics and other types of data to do things like figure out if certain writings were written by Shakespeare, for example. They do comparisons, and from that, they're able to compare things they know he wrote with things he may have written and have a sense of whether he wrote them or not. You can do something similar, and there's a link to the stylometry prompt in the PowerPoint. And basically, it's going to tell you, like in the example you see here on the screen, I asked it, um, does the same individual seem to have written all of the paragraphs in this piece? And as you can see, clearly they did a whole bunch of the little X's come together, meaning that all those paragraphs were written by one person, and then you've got all these outliers. So I could tell that they had written half, two-thirds of the paragraphs, but not the whole thing. Um, my hope is that you never need to use something like this. Of course, the best way, the way I hope you solve this problem is by just using high quality, high value AI resistant assignments. But if you ever do need it, here are some ideas for you. And then if you do suspect it, and you feel confident in your concerns, I would follow that up with a conversation with the student, not an accusation. And simply ask the student to explain key aspects of the work. What did you mean by this word? Tell me more about this concept? And if they can't, then you really and truly know that whether they used AI or not, they definitely are not getting what they need to get. They're not understanding what they need to understand to get a high grade on that particular piece. So sometimes it's easier to say, not to say, I'm giving you a C or D or F because you used AI, but saying, I'm giving you a C or D or F because clearly you don't truly understand what it is that I was trying to teach you. Basically, you're using the use of AI as a teachable moment. But I want you to also sometimes probably um, have assignments that require AI. And when you do, what you'll generally follow that up with is instead of, like normally we sometimes ask students to show your work, you're going to ask them to reflect on your process. So when students do projects with AI, you should just ask them to copy and paste the entire document. And sometimes those are very long because between the prompts and the AI responding and how wordy AI is, they tend to be pretty long. That's all right. It's, just copy and paste. And then look at this next slide. Here's how you would have students, kind of break it down. How good were the questions or tasks they used? How well did they communicate what they needed, and so on. So using AI doesn't mean a student took the easy route, because sometimes, in fact, most of the time, when anyone uses AI, to use it well requires a lot of work and higher order thinking. So this kind of analysis, whether the student does it for themselves or you do it for them, is definitely like getting at like how well did they utilize AI. So I'm going to kind of turn towards the big idea that we're looking at here. And that is, what can I do about AI in my English classroom? How can I ensure that when I don't want students to use it, they aren't using it? Well, I know that what we used to do and what it's really killing a lot of you to lose is we used to have students do a lot of their writing at home. But I'm saying that wasn't that great anyway. When you had students do that, how did you know that they were the ones writing it anyway before AI? Maybe they got a lot of help from a parent or a sibling or a friend. And when you send students home to write, that can be fine for a student who's just, a really strong writer. But what about the student who isn't? You've just put them in a very difficult situation where if they get stuck, there's no one to turn to necessarily. There's little support or clarification. Basically, I'm saying, please, it wasn't that great to be able to send students home to have them do their writing there. It just never was. So get over feeling bad about the fact that you can't do it anymore. That's what I'm saying. What's really important is that you have students doing things that they value. This is my book. It is literally called Learning That Matters. And that is the direction you need to head in if you want to fix this problem. Because basically, when students or humans of any kind can see how what they're learning has value and feel capable of succeeding in what we've asked of them and aren't in a position of desperation, they will almost always put in the work. You have to make sure the learning matters to the students. And so when you have students do the work in class, it kind of takes care of that second bullet point, right? They feel more capable because you're there to support them. And it also takes care of kind of the third bullet point. At that moment, at least when they're in your classroom, they're generally not hungry. They're generally, if they, maybe don't have a home to go to, at least in that moment, they're somewhere warm and safe. So it kind of asking students to write inside the classroom takes care of bullet points 2 and 3. And then you just have to really focus on ensuring that what they're doing has value to them. And that is what we're going to look at the rest of the semester. How do you make sure students see reading as having value and come to love it? How do you help students see writing as as having value and come to love it? How do they even see grammar as a means to writing well and therefore enjoy it, or at least have it matter to them? This is your solution right here. This is your solution. We used to focus mostly on sticks. People talk about carrots and sticks. We focused on sticks. We watched what they did. We told them if they didn't do what we wanted, we were going to give them a bad grade. We threatened them. And all that's kind of crumbling. But it's not crumbling because of AI. The problem is not AI. The problem is that we haven't focused on the most important aspects of learning: value, integrity, joy. These are the things that matter. And we've just really strayed from thinking about those things. Again, that's what I want to do in this class is think about those things. So, how to get started on this? Ask your students. Ask them, probably you should have them do this on paper. Sometimes students don't want to admit in front of everyone that maybe they would love to be a spectacular writer or reader or speaker. Um, so maybe better to have them write. Maybe do this over 3 different days and ask them the question, what would you be able to do if you were a spectacular writer? How might that be cool? How might it be wonderful? And then do another day that we ask them about being a spectacular reader, being a spectacular speaker. Because frankly, most students would love to be a spectacular writer and reader and speaker. They recognize how far that can get them in life. They really do. And once you know that they want it, and as I said, a lot of the students, even at this point, before we've gone all out to make sure they love it, will recognize the value. Then you can tell students, okay, I see you want this. Let me help you get there. That's what I'm here for. I'm going to help you get there. And then you have to make sure that it will require what is called desirable difficulty. And I think the best way to describe desirable difficulty is this. When you play a sport, you can't just kind of go through the motions and do the least possible thing and get good at it. You just can't. You have to do the work. The same if you're learning to sing or play a musical instrument. You can't just go through the motions. You can't just take the easiest possible route. You have to put in the work. That's how you get good at it. Even with something like video games, if you're just like half-heartedly doing it, you're not going to get good at it. You have to put in the work. Anything you want to get good at, you have to put in the work. And that is just as true with reading and writing and speaking. Learning anything should feel difficult. And I think a lot of students have never heard somebody say that. They think that when they struggle with homework, that is a problem and that other students are not struggling with it. But if you aren't feeling like your brain hurts when you are doing work for a class, you probably aren't doing something that's that valuable. You probably aren't really growing. And I want to take a little sidebar here and mention how important that is for you all, because with AI, you could easily have the AI just summarize readings for you, summarize a podcast, just make it easy. Yeah, sure, you could. It won't stick. Um, you will not be able to build the neuronal networks required for that understanding by taking the easy way. You won't. Um, you've got to build, I'm just going to say, even though it's weird, you have to build the muscles of the brain. And as soon as you start to take the easy route, like as soon as something is just summarized for you, you're not hearing the examples behind it. You're not seeing the research that goes with it. You're not hearing stories that are related to it. All those things that make it understandable and make it stick, you've lost as soon as you take the easy way out. So your students need to understand what desirable difficulty is, and you need to understand what desirable difficulty is and know that when it comes to learning academics, it's important. It should feel hard. It should be hard because that's where the biggest jumps in learning occur. So, to summarize, you're going to have to teach for integrity. We have stopped doing that by and large. We don't often talk to students about integrity. We're going to have to start talking about it more, having students have conversations about it and self-persuade, build that muscle of doing right. And we're going to have to focus on value and relevance. We just can't continue to say, do it because I say so. Do it because it's a standard and you have to meet the standard. Do it because in some distant future it's going to matter. No, not going to fly anymore. Students have to see how it has value and relevance now. And that is possible. And I will help you do it. How? Well, just to give you a basic overview of the method we're going to be looking at this semester, the one method I know that really works is to have students spend about a third of their class time reading like real readers do, reading books they enjoy, sometimes gathering and reading books together through book clubs, sharing what they're reading in ways that are wonderful, as opposed to being forced to slog through a book that they don't care about with everybody else, or a book that isn't at their right reading level. No, real reading. Real reading is what makes students fall in love with reading. Fake reading makes people hate reading. We're going to have students writing like real writers do. Your class is going to be like 1/3 of the time like writing camp. Like imagine students coming together in the summer because they want to learn to write. That's what your class is going to be like, helping students write like real writers do, not writing crap like a 5-paragraph essay on why we should or shouldn't wear uniforms. No, real writing where students are writing about things that they care about. Again, I'm going to show you how to do it. And then about a third of the time, having students participate in just highly engaging mini lessons. Sometimes you might utilize AI for this, where they, just learn the basics of, for example, grammar and how to analyze literature. And it's kind of in that piece where they're learning the standards. But using 1/3 of your class time to do that well in an engaging way is plenty. And then that leaves a third for reading and a third for writing, because that's what students should really be doing. And probably little or no homework. And most of the homework would be just encouraging students to read for fun. Just whatever novel or whatever it is they're currently reading, just encourage them to spend half an hour a night reading that, not forcing it, because real readers aren't forced to read, but highly encouraging it. That's the method I'm going to be showing you this semester. It sounds simple, but it's a little complex. I have loads of great videos to show you where you can see someone actually doing this with real students, and I can't wait to show it to you. I'm going to close with a poem. This is Bees by Jane Hirschfield. In every instant, two gates. One opens to fragrant paradise, one to hell. Mostly we go through neither. Mostly we nod to our neighbor, lean down to pick up the paper, go back into the house. But the faint cries, ecstasy? Horror? Or did you think it the sound of distant bees, making only the thick honey of this good life? And I chose this poem because what most people do is they maybe learn about AI, or they learn about these teaching methods that work so much better. And then they mostly ignore it. Mostly they nod to their neighbor and go back in the house and just pretend they never heard it. And I really hope that that's not you. I hope that you hear it and do it. And I'm looking forward to it. And I will see you later.